Hi everyone, let's start our testing journey with the Nest.js. And here I'm showing all these components like controller, service, repository, and database. Because when you write a controller, you depend on the service. When you write a service depends on the specified repository. Either you are using TypeORM, Mongoose model, or Prisma models. So your service indirectly depends on some repositories, like in definition of TypeORM, you are dependent on a particular entity repository, right? To fetch the data, to get the data, to update, delete, all different kind of operations. So controller depends on your service depends on the repository, and repository is bringing the data from database. So what we are going to mock, what we are going to write test for? We are going to write test for controller. So there is a controller. We will write a controller spec and we will write a service spec. And how it is going to work? When you are writing a controller spec, you are going to mock the service, and when you are going to write a service, you are going to mock the repository. So this is the blueprint of how we are going to perform the testing, because unit testing is all about mocking, where when you write a controller, because controller has the dependency injection of service, so you have to mock all the service methods, and service has the dependency of this entity repository, so you have to mock the entity repository. So you are not going to call the actual database, you are calling the mock version of the repository. So this is how this whole system works. We are going to write test for controller, service, and mock repository. So we are not going to hit the actual database, we are going to just use a mock repository. Mock repository will use this get repository token, which is actually representing the mock entity. So you can perform the basic operations and you can mock the implementation provided by TypeOR. So it's all about mocking. Unit testing is all about mocking and giving a mock representation of your TypeORM entities. Three baboons are showing the same picture, that they are showing the mocking behavior of controller and service. And how the mocking is done in Nest.js can be understood by the custom providers. So there are three different ways of creating a custom providers. Custom providers, you can say, is the different ways of creating the instance of the service. Okay, you can create a custom instance of having Nest.js instantiated, either Nest.js instantiate for you, or you can reuse the existing class, or you can override the class with a mock dependency. This is important because in testing we are going to use the mock dependency. We have a service, I will create a mock version of it, and using these custom providers I will be using the mock version of the service instead of the actual service version. So here you can see these are the three different variations. Here, provide use existing, right? This is also we use in the custom providers, like when you want to create a instance of a class with a new name but still class is the same, then you can use a use existing. Here we are doing provide and use value. This is really important and this is what we are going to use. You can see cat service may be some service which is going to which is dealing with database. Okay, and what you are doing is you are providing the mock version of the cat service using use value. So provide cat service and then use value is a mock cat service, and in the mock cat service we can just define the mock methods. Okay, get cat, save cat, create, delete cat, update cat. This is how we are going to override the definition of cat service in our own specific way. There are other ways also, like factory ways, in which you are providing the particular service, and then dynamically you can define which class you wanted to use. Custom provider is important topic in the Nest.js, and this is how we define the providers, the different ways of defining the providers using use value, use class, use existing, use factory. So this is very basic example we are talking in the first. I have just config, and this is the same advanced GitHub repository, and here we have written a simple app controller spec or app service spec. What do you think about these two test code we have written? I mean, if you see what we are doing here is we are just using the factory pattern, factory custom provider. We are providing app service, and app service definition is defined in the use factory. Now, how can we change it? So what I'm doing is I'm just creating a new version of it, new version of the same code. Here I don't need to do anything. Here I can define my providers, provide app service, and I can define the mock version of this service. Here you can use all these options. What options you can use class, use existing, use factory, and use value. These are the different ways in which you can define a provider. So most of the cases we are going to use value. Okay, provide me this app service and use this mock version of the app service using use value. So use existing, use factory, and you can just use a use value, and you can provide a mock version of it. So here in the mock version we are just defining both the functions with the where get hello is just returning a mock hi, and if you are going to use a use factory, then you can just use a, you can just define the whole section here. How you are going to define is just an arrow function, and inside this define both the mock functions. So if you have just wanted to use a use factory or use value, that depends on you how you wanted to use it, but you can also define the whole thing here using use factory. Now if I run the tests are passing, so we are good. So this is how the overall basic test is working. This is how I was going to show you that these are the providers like use factory, use existing, use class, use value. In most of the cases you might be using use factory and the use value. Now let's write the actual test case like the user controller spec.ts or user service.spec.ts, and in the controller you can see what we are doing. In controller there is a dependency, we are injecting user service, so somehow we need to mock the user service so I can check, okay, when I'm calling find all, I got the data and the method has been called, and method has been called with this object. Once you mock the find one, I can call the find one method of the controller and can check, okay, find one has been called and find one has been called with this parameter. This is, and what is the result? This is the result when you are calling find one, and the result is equal to this mock value. So this is the controller, we are injecting a service. So let's try to write our test case. In test case we are going to put simple definition. So mock user service, first we'll create a mock version using jest.fn, and then we'll create a before each block, because before executing any test case we need to have a nest.js testing module initialized by passing the required module services controllers. Await testing module test.create testing module, and here